Malaysia is not immune from global development. And a lot of what we see on the ground are or consequences or unintended consequences of global development. Malaysia, before the 1970s, was essentially a colonial trading outpost, dependent on colonial resource trade. And in 1970, around 1970, 1971, Malaysia pivoted to the first round of export-led industrialization growth. That has a lot to do with the time, that particular period or moment in history. The British withdrew away from this part of the world. The United States was stuck in Vietnam, stuck in a global crisis, and eventually Nixon withdrew the gold standards to dollar. That was a particular moment in history that Malaysia, together with ASEAN peers like Singapore and as well as at that time Hong Kong, Taiwan, to pursue an export-led industrialization. And there was no coincidence that actually Intel's first overseas factory was in Penang at that point of time. So that was the global background to outsourcing from US companies, particularly technology companies, and we were the recipient of it. So we were attempting to move away from the framework of a trading nation to an industrialized nation, but dependent on FDI-driven, export-oriented industrialization. The second time that we made a major pivot was in 1985, 1986. 1985, there was domestic recession, but around the same time, something major happened. The US forced Japan to accept the Plaza Accord, and the Plaza Accord forces the yen to appreciate to a very high level. And by about 1988, Japanese firms were relocating to Southeast Asia, to Batam, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, together with their Koreans and Taiwanese suppliers. So during that period of time, Malaysia adopted in 1986 the Promotion of Investment Act, which allowed for 100% ownerships of foreign manufacturing firms. We are very much still stuck in those times. The way we talk about investment is always about FDI-driven manufacturing. Up until today, we are very much stuck in that period of time. So we are influenced by this idea that we are a trading nation. We are influenced by this idea that we rely on FDI to do manufacturing. But that model came into a crisis because China joined WTO in 2001. When China joined WTO, China became the factory of the world. There was no relevance anymore for Malaysia to play the role of outsourced manufacturing hub. And of course, that was 20 years. The Malaysian economy was neither here nor there. And post-COVID, with geopolitics, with financial instability, high interest rate and the rest, and with now a lot more challenges that we are dealing with, it's not just geopolitics, it's geoeconomics. We are now coming to a new era. We're now coming to a new era where I think we should be more ambitious. We should now seriously ask everyone who is supposed to think in Malaysia, do we still hold on to a trading nation paradigm? Which is still on the minds of most people. Most people still think that we are a trading nation. It's like natural that we tell everyone that Malaysia is a trading nation, and to the extent that we trade anything, we trade foreign workers, we trade, we allow for circumvention, we allow for transshipment, we just trade. Or we focus on FDI-driven manufacturing, okay, which is the 1971, 1986 or 85 paradigm. Or is it time for us to think of something new? I think we must see Malaysia as a technology nation. We must really be very clear and to have that clarity to see Malaysia as a technology nation. And as a technology nation, positioning ourselves in three middles. I think Malaysia should see ourselves in these three middles. The first middle is we are the indispensable middle in the supply chain. That means we have to be clear. We are not here to pursue the most advanced technology. We concede that. We concede that for the next 10 to 15 years, that Malaysian technology would not supersede that of US, China, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, let's say Germany, or the Netherlands. But beyond this country, Malaysia should see itself as the indispensable middle in which we innovate and we create technology. And we have to ask ourselves, do we still see the United States as the only major market of the first and last resort? Or we see that we create technologies for everyone else, including hoping that investing into the idea that the rest of the world will become richer and we can be their technological partner if we hold on to this high middle position in technology. The second middle is to see ourselves very clearly positioning ourselves in the middle of geopolitics, holding on to the idea that we are a middle power but we are non-aligned, and ensuring that in the technological contestation, and we want to play a role working with partners to ensure that there's no technological bifurcation. Okay? The challenge is on a daily basis, in the years to come, we'll be forced to make small and big choices of technological bifurcation. But it is the role of countries like Malaysia, working with other partners, including EU and ASEAN and the rest of the world, to ensure that we would not see technological bifurcation. And that middle is important, because if we can hold on to that middle, there'll be space for all of us. The third middle is to invest in creating a middle class in Malaysia and the region. I want to circle back to what I've said. For the longest of time, Asian society grew rich by exporting to the US. Today, there are still many companies that come to Malaysia thinking that they want to manufacture here in order to export to the US. But that is not going to be easy in the years to come. So we must now take a different look at how and who are the markets. We must think that we are not just exporting to the US, but we want to create a market here in Malaysia, in ASEAN, and in the rest of the world, so that we can produce and innovate for the bottom billion or the bottom billions and still have a market. If the bottom billion or billions are increasingly prosperous. So I think that three middle, indispensable middle in the supply chain, middle power or middle ground in geopolitics, and investing in the middle class so that we are not just production side, but we are also consumer base, is important for us to think about. Let me briefly share with you some of the latest development, which hopefully these are sharings, which just keep it among here. Some of my personal anecdotes from this part onwards. You can do Chatham House rule, but you not quote me. I'll share with you some of the challenges. I mean, we deal with Trump, but when we are dealing with Trump and reciprocal tariff, we're not just dealing with the United States. We are also now faced with second order effect. And the second order effect could be as severe as the first order effect. Very interestingly, but this is not to be shared outside. Recently, there were several China-owned companies in Malaysia coming to MITI and asked if MITI could impose tariff on Chinese import. This 100% China-owned company is producing in Malaysia, subjected to Malaysian regulation, Malaysian cost structure, asking the Malaysian government, can the Malaysian government consider imposing tariff on Chinese product, and this particularly in the green and specifically solar industry, because there is an export rebate on the Chinese side. But here they are already very competitive price-wise, yet Chinese product is still so much cheap. Well, it's not really very much cheaper, but because the export rebate widened the gap. So this is a difficult conversation that I think we will have to start talking about. And we may have to talk to the Chinese. We may have to talk to the Chinese and say, okay, it is not just about ensuring that China is the powerhouse for solar panel or green technologies, but it's also to help ensure that other nations are able to have some capability and retain some capability, including retain the Chinese invested capabilities in our country. So this is the second order effect that we are going to face, not just in Malaysia, we're going to face in Brazil, we're going to face in many other industrialized nations, which is something that we have to deal with. And the second challenge that we are facing on the ground is within our ecosystem. As I say, we're still thinking that we're a trading nation. We're still thinking that we're just manufacturing. And that results in a certain behavior. For instance, many Malaysians, when they talk about industrialization, it means selling industrial land. So the government-linked corporations, government-linked investment corporations, private sectors, everyone is riding on the reindustrialization rhetoric in order to sell land. But that is not industrialization. And this is a challenge that we're facing locally. How do we transform the cliques? How do we transform the GLC? How do we transform the private owners, private capital, to see that this is a moment in history that Malaysia should really build its technological capability. It is not about selling land, it is about creating technology and investing in technology, how to create that financing model and financing ecosystem to be able to finance technology. And finally, the third challenge is how do we, in this global environment, start talking about industrial policy without feeling guilty? You see, we are so influenced by neoliberal ideas that we think that industrial policy is a dirty word. But how do we seriously talk about industrial policy, specifically for Malaysia, is not just about getting investment into manufacturing, but it's about creating horizontal linkage. Malaysia, and to a certain extent Singapore, are quite unique. We still have 20% of GDP coming from manufacturing, which is quite unique around the world. How do we use the capability that we have, not just to vertically link to global firm? Now, we have many semiconductor companies, mostly foreign owned, and many of them are actually exporting right globally, vertically integrated. And among our semiconductor firms, quite a lot has something to do with automotive. Yet, the Malaysian automotive industry has almost no linkage to the semiconductor industry. The Malaysian automotive industry do not do IC design here. The Malaysian automotive industry do not tap into the capability that we have in the semiconductor industry. So how do we use the industrial capability we have to horizontally link to automotive, link to medical devices, link to agriculture, farm robots, link to defense industry? If we can actually, in the Malaysian context, horizontally link our capability across, I think we'll be doing reasonably well in this chaotic world. So with that, I want to thank KRI and also UNCTAD for inviting me to this Conference on Green Industrialization in Malaysia, Integrated Policy Strategy for a Sustainable Future. Thank you very much.